Welcome to this video, a new part of the opening disaster series. This game shown here was played between Stefano Tatai and Victor Korchnoi. Tatai at the time, I'm talking about 1978, at the time was, I'm not sure if he was the #1 Italian player, probably he was. At the time, Italian chess was not as strong as it is today, led by Fabiano Caruana, but they also have some other strong grandmasters. Tatai here was playing white against Korchnoi. At the time, 1978, the challenger to Karpov. Korchnoi was definitely world #2 at the time, and a very serious challenger to Karpov. He almost won the match in 1978. It was very, very close. Let's look at this game. Tatai played 1e4 and Korchnoi played the French. The French at the time was Korchnoi's main defense. He, for instance, had played it tons of times in his 1974 match against Karpov. This was the candidates final that was deciding who should challenge Fischer in 75. So Korchnoi had this shot at the title in 74 already. If he would have beaten Karpov, he would have been the challenger to Fischer and maybe become world champion if Fischer wouldn't have played. Korchnoi played the French a lot at the time with great success. He didn't play it in the 1978 match though, for some reason, not sure why exactly. He had good results. Okay, let's look at this. Tatai played the exchange variation, somewhat dreaded line for black players. It's a little bit boring. It's nothing challenging, but it does not get you to the kind of complex structures that black players normally want. However, if you are black and your opponent is playing that, you shouldn't despair. Very often people playing the exchange with white have a very narrow-minded idea. They just want to draw. And it is your task as black to try to unbalance the game a bit, and very often you succeed and can still win. In this game we see a nice way for black to do that, and this is against the move for bishop b3. White here has mainly 3 moves: bishop d3, knight f3 and c4. The main choice nowadays is, I guess, knight f3. It's the most flexible move. It still keeps the option of playing c4, but it still avoids what happens in this game here. Bishop d3 has a slight drawback, or even 2 drawbacks. Knight f3, and white can also play c4 instead. If you want a more fighting game, this is quite interesting, in fact. Bishop d3, and now black has 2 choices that are less interesting against knight f3, or even incorrect. Black can play knight c6, which forces some sort of concession for white. Something like this, for example, where you get a pin early. Very nice. Or c3, after you have forced him to play c3, and now you have various ideas. One is to play a setup like this with bishop f5 to come. The second way to try to punish bishop d3, and in fact this is what I would recommend black players to do, is what Korchnoi played. He played c5. Korchnoi was very enthusiastic about this move, and I remember that he made comments on this game for the Chess Informant or other publications, where he gave bishop d3 questionable move, c5 exclamation mark. There is some truth to that. Black probably shouldn't be better. This is an exaggeration, but there is some point to this move. The idea is that if you get to an isolated queen pawn position, like after the capture here, the white bishop on d3 is not ideally placed. It is not a terrible spot for the bishop, but normally in IQP positions you rather have it on e2 to increase your control over d4, and it's sometimes a bit misplaced on d3, also considering that after knight f3 there's possibly bishop g4. It is nothing terrible, but something that black players yeah, certainly shouldn't shy away from. Also, it leads to an unbalance of the position. So c5 is interesting. When I got this as black, I almost all the time played c5, and I got good results with that. Yeah, Tatai played knight f3, and Korchnoi went knight c6. Yeah, black also could consider to play c4 and gain a tempo, but this would yeah, take some dynamism away from the structure, so probably not as good. Yeah, knight c6, a good move. Yeah, and I think now white should probably just castle or play c3. Tatai played
Check.
queen e2 check, and I think this is the first of a series of slightly doubtful moves, and a series of slightly inaccurate moves can pile up to real problems, and this is the first step. Why queen e2? Why could queen e2 be questionable? The main reason is, well, black plays bishop e7. We start with that. The main reason is that black will definitely play knight f6, castles, rook e8. Those moves will definitely be on his agenda. And then the queen on e2 is really not well placed. You don't want to be in the e-file with the queen where the black rook is coming. So long term, you are forced to move the queen again. And well, you don't have a great spot for this piece. We will see how it unfolds in the game. He now took on c5. Of course, well, you cannot castle, for instance, after c4. Yeah, it will be very embarrassing. So right here, the capture makes lots of sense. Korchnoi just played knight f6. He's just focusing on his development. Black shouldn't think about moves like, let's say, queen
Check.
a5, trying to get the pawn back quickly. You are not going to yeah, lose it anyway long term. Just knight f6 is perfectly okay. White has no way to protect this pawn. Let's say he tries bishop e3. In the long run, he will not be able to keep it. Let's say castles, castles, rook e8. And now we are threatening bishop takes c5, using this opposition of rook and queen. Yeah, here white is already forced to move the queen again, which does not really help him, like back to d1. It's just not very good to put the queen in the e-file. Yeah, he went h3, and this is again a bit questionable. He was probably afraid of bishop g4, but I'm not sure that you can afford this luxury, spending yet another move for yeah, without developing. And it also implies a weakening of the king side, which at the moment does not look very relevant, but yeah, see what happens. Black castles, white castles, and now black got the pawn back on c5. You see, he took two moves to take on c5, so you might argue that queen e2, yeah, it's a move that does not really help much, but it does not help much, but black also has lost a move. But the main point is that, yeah, well, c3 was played, a normal move to control the square here, rook e8, and now we see the big problem. Where should the queen go? The relatively best square is really d1. d1 is a better square than c2 because it keeps more. It keeps also this knight protected, which is useful. Yeah, but nobody's going to play a queen back to d1. He went queen c2. And the queen really does not belong on c2 in this structure. You want it, yeah, ideally back on d1. And want to try to slowly get some sort of control over d4, the square in front of the isolated pawn. However, we are already talking about a position where white is in deep trouble. Korchnoi now played a very strong move, and this is a move that really should be, yeah, remembered in a way, because it can come up time and time again in very similar situation. Korchnoi now played the move queen to d6. What's the point of the move? Yeah, the big point is that white with h3 has weakened his king side. Black is actually threatening something here. He's threatening the absolutely shattering move, bishop takes h3. Of course only possible because white has played the move h3. If we look at a move like rook d1 that simply ignores all of that, black really just smashes here and wins immediately. The point is that this big check is coming, assisted by this great bishop. Now white, of course, will lose very quickly. King moves and he's going down in flames. Bishop h3 is a big threat, and it's really not easy to do something against it. What exactly are you going to do? This is also a reason, by the way, why the queen, relatively speaking, would be better on d1, because it keeps f3 protected at least. Yeah, Tatai played the move knight bd2. This makes sense because it covers f3, so the immediate bishop takes h3 is not really on anymore. It was interesting. It's not a bad move, in fact, to take on h3, but black now already has a better way to play. Korchnoi just went, queen to g3. Yeah, you can go there. It is assisted by the bishop, and now black again threatens bishop takes h3, and yeah, white really has no response to that. It's really really funny. If he goes, let's say, king h1 to start with the move, yeah, then black has a simple choice. Just take it. Yeah, this is hanging, and white really has no move here now. Bishop h3 is now an additional threat, and after something like that, we just retreat and continue from here. We have won a pawn, and we have an overwhelming kingside attack. Also, knight e4 is coming. Terrible for white. Yeah, king h1 is not helping at all. What else is there? If he goes here, then after bishop takes h3, it's already a forced checkmate. Queen takes g2 cannot be prevented. If white tries to cover this, we're just going to take the defender, and white will be mated in very short order. Yeah, in the game, he played bishop f5. There's really no defense anymore. This is of course designed to prevent black from taking on h3, but it allows a second attacking motif, rook e2. Bishop takes f2 is the main point now, and white has absolutely no cover for that. He went knight d4, but black can simply take because the queen is not really hanging. I mean, it is hanging, but black, of course, gets the queen back with check and this huge chunks of material up. Yeah, the rook here on a1. After knight d4, knight takes d4, cd4. Actually, sorry, after knight takes d4, Tatai actually resigned, but it will continue like that. And f2 is collapsing. White has no way to cover the pawn. So a very, very quick destruction here of the exchange French. It shows that even in those kind of lame, innocent looking openings, you can sometimes get really quick wins in if you play really pretty aggressively and very purposefully, trying to really punish what the other side is doing wrong. Here white has made a couple of small things, small mistakes that piled up to this catastrophe. Yeah, bishop d3, queen e2, h3, yeah, and those kind of things, they pile up. And here it's really surprisingly bad for white after this queen d6 idea. It's really tough, difficult now for white to stay in the game. This queen g3 or bishop takes h3 idea is really tough to counter. Now that I think of it, what about king h1, by the way? Just for starters, what does black do now? Yeah, he will play knight e4, I guess. And this is also not looking very good if we consider that bishop f5 is coming, and white has a hard time to develop. You cannot play knight d2 as f2 hangs. how do you actually develop? Let's say knight a3. I just want to show briefly how it could have unfolded. Note that black is perfectly developed. Knight b5 and queen here in order to threaten those kind of checks. Yeah, for example,
check.
Something like that might happen. Yeah, it's a good way, the c5 move, to battle bishop d3 in the exchange French. Note that knight f3 c5 is by far not as good, as white here has the opportunity to give the check on b5 in one move. And here white gets castled quickly and does not have this misplaced bishop on d3. This is in fact quite an argument for not playing c5. This is a big difference to the bishop on d3. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this game and maybe you got a nice weapon out of this for combating the French exchange. Thanks for watching.